Hey everybody, it's Sam Jacobs. Welcome back to the Sales Hacker Podcast. We have this week's guest back on the show. His name is Ethan Butte. He is the Chief Evangelist and VP of Marketing at BombBomb, which is one of the leading video engagement platforms out there. A really interesting company out of Colorado Springs. You heard him earlier this week when we interviewed him for part of the Revenue Collective Executive Offsite. And we've got Ethan back onto the show to talk about the right framework for how to incorporate video into your sales motion. Now, before we get there, we want to thank our sponsor. Friday Fundamentals is brought to you by Outreach. Outreach triples the productivity of sales teams and empowers them to drive predictable and measurable revenue growth. By prioritizing the right activities and scaling customer engagement with intelligent automation, Outreach makes customer-facing teams more effective and improves visibility into what really drives results. Now, Ethan, welcome back to the show. Our question for you today is, give us a framework for how to incorporate video into your sales motion.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me back. You know, a lot of folks that I'm talking with are, I get it, video is important. We need to get our people face to face with our prospects and our customers a lot more often. But where does video belong? Like, where do we put it? Where does it fit into these cadences and sales motions? And so I've generated a 3-part framework that has been really helpful for a variety of folks. And so these are 3 different ways to evaluate as you look at all of the touch points from this point to that point in a customer or prospect relationship. These are the 3 things to maybe look for to say, oh, I would benefit from a video in this spot. And the first one is personal connection. This one's a little bit of a no-brainer, but it's so important. So especially early on in the relationship, especially if you're trying to get face-to-face with someone in an in-person or maybe a Zoom conversation where you want to get face-to-face earlier. There's a lot of psychology behind the idea that when I can see you and hear you and see where you work and hear how you present yourself, I'm a lot more connected to you immediately. And so this personal connection piece is super valuable early in the relationship. Another thing to look for is anywhere you want to manage emotion or tone. And it's easy to think of the positive stuff where you congratulate someone or thank someone for achieving something or taking the next step and that kind of thing. And it's really valuable, and I could go deep into that. But the interesting one here is the negative emotion or negative tone. There's a lot of psychology behind why we would want to send a video to help apologize or break bad news on someone. This wouldn't necessarily be in an automated sequence type situation, but when things go sideways, because sometimes they do, because we're all human, we're not perfect, when you want to manage that, creating that distance where you can send a message with your full self, face, voice, personality, sincerity, where you can, truly manage that tone, especially the negative tone, it gives you the opportunity to give someone the space because it's asynchronous. You record the video and send it when it's convenient for you. They open it up and experience when it's convenient for them. And that time between when they get that news or they accept that apology and when you actually connect directly gives them the time to process it. Bad news is typically psychologically more heavy and takes longer to process. And so when you do get someone on the phone or you do get to meet with someone face-to-face in person or over a video conferencing solution, they've already had the time to process that, and you can move forward in a much more productive conversation. And so that's been a really winning strategy for a lot of folks. And again, we all aspire to be perfect, but none of us can. And so we often find ourselves in those situations. So the second step is managing positive or negative emotion or tone. Again, doubling down on the positive stuff and really effectively managing the negative stuff. And the third and final one is detail or complexity. Where are people confused? Where do they get frustrated? Where are you sending 4, 5, 6, 7 paragraph emails that would be much better as a shorter video where you're just speaking in layperson's terms about what someone needs to do or the information they need to move forward and that kind of a thing. And this is where a screen recording in particular is especially helpful. So whether it's breaking down some complex numbers behind a deal in order to bring it over the line, or whether it's to welcome someone into a new software environment, or whether it's to show a sales presentation in a PDF or a PowerPoint, you can kind of do that show and tell where your face is still on the screen. You still get all of that benefit of the human-to-human connection. It's the convenience of being recorded and sent, but you also have all of this stuff on your screen to help you walk through the information and to kind of walk the prospect or customer through it as well.
That's fantastic. And I really, really liked the second point that you made, particularly around bad news and sort of things where emotion is really important. So just recapping for the benefit of our listeners, correct me if I missed anything, but three frames through which you can think about incorporating video. The first is to establish personal connection, and it doesn't just have to be as part of the new business, but it can be sort of anywhere that you're trying to establish and deepen an authentic relationship with a customer or somebody else. The second is managing emotion or tone, particularly in the case of bad news or things where you might have fouled something up, and you can use video to present a softer, more nuanced perspective on whatever that is. And then something particularly complicated, that's the third one. When there's a complex technical thing that needs to be explained, consider using video in that context. It's just an easier way to get complicated ideas across. Is that accurate?
Well done, Sam. That's exactly right. And I liked your ad there on the idea of any point in the customer life cycle. All of these ideas apply across the entire customer life cycle, and they also apply all the way across the employee life cycle as well. So when you look at how you're engaging your employees and managing them and having them, making sure they have a great experience, you can use video in these ways as well.
Fantastic. Ethan, thanks so much for being on the show. Remind us, if folks are hearing what you're saying and want to reach out, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
They can reach me on LinkedIn. It's Ethan Beute. Last name is spelled Beute. I welcome a connection, especially with a note. Or you can email me directly with your video questions, Ethan, ETHAN, @bombbomb.com.
Fantastic. If folks want to reach out to me, you can, linkedin.com/in and then /Sam F. Jacobs. Thanks again to our sponsors, Outreach, who triple the productivity of sales teams and empower them to drive predictable and measurable revenue growth. Ethan, thanks for appearing at the Executive Offsite back in October. And everybody out there, we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.